Guys, Ricky with the Flip Lab, and today, if you guys aren't watching and listening to this, we're on Ricky Gutierrez's private jet. He just purchased it, so congrats on the purchase, man.
Thank you.
And typically I have people on here just talking about house flips, which obviously you do.
Yep.
But this is going to be your first endeavor in possibly flipping a jet. I know you flipped a bunch of cars.
Yep.
So I kind of want to start the conversation off of like, where did it all begin? It seems like, you know, I know your humble beginnings for you. You've kind of built this all up in your 20s to where you are today, buying, you know, your first jet. But where did the idea of flipping kind of come into your brain, and kind of how did you start off flipping?
Yeah, so I would say like the first thing that I remember buying and selling that was an actual thing that someone else made were like iPhones. That was kind of like my side hustle when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. Even all the way up to 17 and 18. I remember going on Craigslist, and now it's a very common thing where I think it's called like something arbitrage, where you post something that you don't actually have, you sell it, and when you get someone that actually wants to buy it at that price, you go and find it and then deliver it. I used to do that with iPhones. So I used to do that where I would post a bunch of listings at a higher price, and if someone would agree to purchase it, I would have 24 hours because I would tell them that I'm in school, and I would try to find something below that level. So that's the first concept that I ever remember where I was taking a product that someone else made, and I was able to sell it for a profit. I remember at my peak, I was making a little bit over like $3,000 profit a month, and this was while I was in high school.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good money there. And
definitely. Yeah.
Would you say? I mean, now you've obviously flipped pretty much everything. Right.
Well, it's all the same. It's all the same concept. Yeah, and I would say like obviously with like the first kind of scary thing that wasn't very traditional, at least for the average person, was like flipping supercars. I grew up with my brother. He had a used car dealership, and he would buy a lot of cars through like insurance auto auction. And the concept of flipping cars was like instilled in me. Like I knew it was possible. I knew if dealerships can make money off of it, then why can't I, just in a smaller scale? On my 18th birthday, my brother assisted me in flipping a Honda Civic that was salvaged. So I attribute all of that credit, and the reason I was so motivated to like buy cars was because he got me into the whole Fast and the Furious series. The way that I started flipping properties is, I mean, I would buy properties. I wasn't initially flipping them, right? I would buy them and rent them out, and I had a couple rentals. I started hard money lending to Lenny, right? So Lenny, an absolute beast in the Arizona market. I'm super grateful that I connected with him when I think it was at a car meet, and I never go to car meets. I met him there. We followed one another. He had a very small following. I think he had like less than like 500 followers. At that time, I was already blowing up, and I would see he would always post him like rehabbing these properties, but he had such a little following. And I asked him, I was like, hey, can I just shadow you? And then he allowed me to, just because we were somewhat friends and we knew of each other. And then I asked him, how can I be of value for you and what it is that you're doing? Because at the end of the day, if someone's doing well, I mean, Lenny already had a Lamborghini at the time, right? He was in his 40s or 50s, I'm not too sure. And why would he take time out of his day to try to be of value for me, right? So that's why I asked him, I was like, what can I do to be of value for you? And then he was like, well, I have hard money lenders. Would you be willing to lend on my properties? And I'm like, sure, right? So that was kind of like my foot in the door to learn more about what it took to successfully flip real estate. And then from there, I met my business partner now, Nick Palladino.
Sure.
I got Nick Palladino connected with Lenny. Nick now is under the brokerage of Lenny. And we took the concepts that we learned from Lenny, and now we started flipping houses ourselves, right?
Yeah.
The same way that it started with planes. The GR Garage Brothers, they wanted to buy a Cessna. And the thing that I'm very grateful for is I've always, as I've been posting kind of like my story and my kind of success on Instagram, I've always been known as the guy that buys and sells things from supercars, houses, and people know that I do lend out money, right? And that's what I'm very thankful for, because I could have taken two routes, right? Where I could have taken a route where this is all my money and I can like gloat about it, I can show it off, and there's no substance there.
Sure.
Or I can take an approach that I feel like I've been trying to take, at least that's the way that I view it, is I've always tried to encourage people that just because you have money doesn't mean that you have to completely blow it, and that with our cars and with the houses that we were purchasing, we were trying to do it in a calculated way. So I'm very grateful that I put myself out there enough to have the JR Garage Brothers feel comfortable enough, because it is sometimes with influencers an ego thing, right? Like they do well, why do they need me, right? But they know that I'm always open to opportunities. So they came up to me and asked would I be willing to lend on purchasing a Cessna. That was the first one, and then I did a hard money loan for them, which pretty much just means I lend them money at a higher interest rate for their series, which is 2 propeller planes. That was my foot in the door. And then they brought up the idea of, would you be interested in funding a jet? I was like, no, but I would partner up with you on a jet, in the sense that I don't just want to be the investor this time, in the sense that I just make money off of interest. I want to own it, right? And I kid you not, probably 2 to 3 weeks later, we purchased it.
Yeah, I remember it was quick, dude, because for those that don't know, me and Rick, we work in the same office. I leased some space out in his Tech Buds headquarters, and I remember you like bringing it up, but it seemed like 2 weeks later, you're like, I bought a plane.
And I kid you not, when I went to go see a jet in, I think it was the Chino Hills private airport, I swear, I was like, why am I even driving up there? It's going to be a waste of time. Like, what business do I have buying a jet? It's so, like, just like how you might be watching this video and be like, it's so unrealistic for me. That's how I felt driving up there. I drove up there with my daughter. I drove up there with my girl, and I drove up there with my buddy. And he brought up the idea the day before. He was like, I have a buddy that has a G3 for sale. And I was like, sure, let's go check it out. Just to, like, entertain it.
Yeah, why not?
When I was touring it, when they were explaining to me, like, the benefits and all this stuff, and I was like, I'm so grateful that I did it, not because I felt like I was going to purchase that one, because right away I knew I wasn't, but it made me aware of what was possible. And then it brought me back to that same kind of, like, drive that I had, where I was like, I want to find a deal with something like this. And after posting it, there are a handful of people that are like, there's no way you're ever going to make money flipping a jet. They're like, stick to flipping houses or stick to flipping cars. But the funny part is, that's exactly what they told me when I began flipping houses and when I began flipping cars. And if I do fail, you know, it's a position that I put myself in, but that's exactly why I bought this jet. And I mean it in a very encouraging way. This is like a Honda Civic of a jet, right? It's one of the cheapest. It's one of the least expensive for maintenance, or if anything goes horribly wrong, it's very easy, or at least a lot easier, right? I'm really big on risk management, to putting yourself in a position in which I can tolerate. So even if this jet, if I were to lose every penny that I put and invested into this jet, because I bought it outright, I would be still fine, right?
Yeah.
And if I were to have bought in a G3 or you know, anything that's a couple million, that would have been a much tougher pill to swallow. But I think just like anything, when you choose to put yourself in a position that is pushing you to get to that next level, just do it in a calculated way. And we say the same thing when investing or trading in the stock market. So many people overcomplicate it, where they're like, well, I don't know how much to start off with. Even if you just buy one share, fuck it, who cares, right? It's one share, but you're at least doing something to actually take action. And that was my approach with buying this one.
Yeah, and I feel like with any flip, it's like there's 3 components, right? You have the money, the person that finds the deal, and then you need like an operator and
project manager.
A project manager, someone with expertise inside that space. So it sounded like you took the same model, like even with cars. I know, like Justin knows a lot about cars.
A lot more than me.
Right, and you've used him, and you guys have done a lot of successful car flips, and then like Nick with the houses, and now it sounds like the JR brothers. You kind of
and Owen
and Owen, right? Yeah. Owen's he's the expertise.
He's the pilot,
like, right? He's the pilot, so he knows the plane business.
Exactly.
They found the deal, and then essentially you were the money guy on the deal.
Exactly, and I think that's the whole point of partnerships, right? If we are all money guys, this probably would have not worked out, because then there's no complementing partnership there, right? Same thing with Nick, same thing with Justin, and same thing with even like Caleb and Weston when they started the dealership, right? Everyone has a role. And if you respect one another's roles, like you guys were asking, like, why do you guys call it like our plane or like we, if you're the one that bought it? Because just like anything, right? If like Brandon finds the deal, but you're the one that is able to like get someone to buy it, and then, you know, there's all these different moving parts that it would have never happened if it wasn't for that entire system. And I feel like often people get so greedy in the very beginning, and I know this has happened to me where I've seen it time and time again. People are so consumed about the idea of wanting to own everything. And they're like, no, I want 100%, or I want 90%, I want 80%. And at that point, one person feels less valued than the other. And then at that point, the partnership will never work, right? You don't even pursue the venture anymore. And therefore, that 50% you didn't want to give up, now you got 0%. And that's exactly the approach that I didn't want to take with this. Like, just understanding how valuable it is to have people that are better at doing, you know, what is actually needed to make a successful plane flip. I would not know where to list this. Jared Garage Brothers and Owen would. I would not know how to fly this. Owen would, right?
Yeah.
I would not know what it would cost to maintain this, or, you know, they're telling me, oh, I need a new jet. How do I know that, right? I have partners that will take care and suffice, you know, whatever it is that I need in that area. For me, it was known that I was just, I'm buying it under my company's name. There's a specific reason, and I'm the money guy. Everything beyond that is on them.
Yeah, and I think for a successful partnership in any business endeavor, it comes down to that. You have to bring unique value to the partnership, or I think if it doesn't, there's too many guys, and it's like, well, why am I giving you half if like we both have the money? There's no unique value that you're providing. So I think you've done a really good job of that, and it seems like what I've noticed, like obviously being around you a lot in the office, it seems like you just have a lot of people bringing different types of opportunities to you.
Dude, it's freaking crazy.
Like last week, even just you know, someone was in pitching you a business idea. You know, you have different people like the candy business that you're in. I know people are constantly kind of just presenting opportunities to you. How would you say you've kind of positioned yourself to be that guy?
I think a lot of guys in my position always put themselves in a pedestal where they always make others around them feel less than. Not always, but I feel like there's always a stigma that, you know, by not just also reaching out to them, but also I do know enough guys that do well enough and or do just as well as me, that feel like they don't need help from anybody else, right? And it might be like an ego-driven thing. For me, I know that I've made a majority of my money by being able to work with people that are more talented than me, right? And in the beginning, I started off in that sense where I wanted to do everything. And then I've learned that if I want to do everything, I have to delegate everything, right? And I think that's where I really began to make the switch. And I wanted to like express that through my content. So when I was making car videos, I would promote it in like, I didn't just buy a GTR at 21. I wanted to buy the cheapest GTR at 21, which was like a weird edge to have. When we were buying houses, I didn't just want to buy a house. I wanted to buy the cheapest house and talk about why. I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that I was a deal hunter. That's always what I was looking for, and that the money should never be your concern, because if the deal is actually valuable, the money will come. And you know that firsthand with what it is that you do.
Yeah, if you buy correctly on any type of a flip, I think that's like the most important thing. Like you could have one of these engines fuck up. If you buy it cheap enough at a discount, where even if that is the case, that you could replace it and still be in the green.
Build yourself your cushion and that margin when you actually purchase it, right?
Yeah. So then, you know, you have all these different businesses. Obviously, you're known, and I know a huge a part of your following is through stock trading.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how consistent you are. Like, even with your business, like the merchandise stuff, like you have that going on. You're day trading every single day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance it all? Or like, I see some people that they want to do it all, but they haven't done anything correctly. Like they haven't mastered one thing.
Yeah.
How would you transition from, like, even like me, I'm just in real estate, but I have a lot of other things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Like, how would you recommend someone to go from like, okay, I started here, I've gained some success, now it's time to kind of branch out into trying some new things?
I think a lot of it is accountability. So just like you said, I think it is important to have your own thing. And regardless of all the different businesses that I'm a part of, there's one thing that is just mine, and that's trading.
Yeah.
It's something that I personally enjoy, and that's something that I individually do myself. I have my team around me, but they do not decide on what the do's and the don'ts of that. That is my own thing. Everything around that, I've been fortunate enough to partner up with people where the way that I try to set a standard is that I want to be held accountable for what I'm not doing, and I will hold you accountable for what you're not doing. So it's all about like right now, I mean, there's highs and there's lows, right? During the high months, like everyone's super happy, but during the low months, I mean, it's hard because then we're all on top of one another. The idea of doing a bunch of different things is I've set up my partnerships that are based off of percentage. So if they see, like for Jake and the e-commerce brand, if he sees that sales are down, it is his responsibility to bring it up to me, to hold me accountable. So therefore, not even does he need to tell me, but it's just even a conversation where I'm just like, this guy's dependent on me for this business, and I am letting him down. And for me, within itself is enough of a motivation that if I need to post, if I need to make videos, if I need to think in a creative way, I need to have meetings with him. We need to work with manufacturers, buy new products or machines to be able to be more efficient, then so be it. But if I started this with him and I don't put in the effort, then I'm letting that partnership down. The same thing with Justin, the same thing with Nick, the same thing with the dealerships, the same thing with everything, same thing with this plan. If I agreed to be a partner in something, it is my responsibility to uphold what was expected of me. And that's always one thing that I talk about prior to partnering up with anyone, is I want everyone to understand their role. And if you're not actually holding yourself accountable to that role, we remove you. And it's that black and white for me, where I would rather, and just like you've said, I've had a lot of opportunities presented to me. I would rather say no if I know I don't value it enough, where I will be available or make myself available enough to actually be of value to that partnership. And I think that's a big thing as well, where if you don't value the business or the opportunity enough, you need to respect the other person enough to make them aware of that. Because at that point, again, you're letting that partner down. And that's the last thing that I want to do.
Yeah, and you do a really good job. I just think of staying consistent with all your stuff. Like I know with LPP, obviously, you're day trading every single day. Like you say that you do. You go on when the stock market opens up. Like every Monday, I'm in the office, and you guys have a meeting every single week, and you're very good, I think, at just being consistent. At hey, what do we need to get done? Is it getting done? And just week in, week out. And from an outside perspective, I think that's like a big part of why everything seems to keep growing. Even like the merch stuff, it's like every week I see, you get a new piece of equipment or new shelves are going in to get like more efficient. And it seems like you're take action, and then like it's about just making it more efficient and growing.
A lot of trial and error, because literally, I mean, every business, every market that I'm a part of now, I was once not a part of ever before. And I think that's a big part of it, where when I see other people doing well, when I see you doing well, when I see other people's e-commerce brand doing well, when I see other people with their trading services doing well, when I see other people trading doing well, I don't view that as competition. I don't get, there's people that I know that get offended by other people's success. Dude, there's so much money to be made. I view it as a motivation of like what is possible. And anytime that I feel like me by posting that I bought this jet, it just made it more realistic for people that were even relatively close to me, or it just pushes them to that next level to know that it is possible. And that's exactly what I want. That I don't care if you don't watch me for trading, right? If you just watch my content because it motivates you, and I'm that spark, and then it motivates you to be successful in another area, I'm so grateful that I've been able to positively impact your life in the smallest way that led you just to be a little bit greater, right? And I think that's a part of why it is that we make that like motivational content. It's to, I guess, just continue to raise the bar just a little bit, to make the dreams a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, and I know you started out kind of like with the car thing, like as a dreamer, you wanted the fast cars, and I mean, we're at the point now though, you have the HQ that you bought, you bought a jet, you have all these supercars, you know, you have an awesome family, beautiful little baby. Like what, at this point, what's kind of your motivation? Because doesn't money, the more you get of it at a certain point, it kind of starts having a diminishing return. Like you bought all the supercars, you bought all the fancy watches, you bought the jet now. You know, like what's kind of the future motivation for you?
Scaling. I still want to get bigger in the areas that we're involved in. So that's definitely always a goal of always just being better than what we were last month or last year. So that's always just a standard that we uphold for ourselves. But the other thing is picking up hobbies. So I started picking up like boxing, and I thought I was someone that can really push myself beyond what the average person can. And then I started taking up boxing, and it made me realize how much more I can tolerate. And for me as an entrepreneur, that really opened up my eyes on how much more I can take on.
Sure.
The big part of discipline as well with boxing. For this up and coming year, I'd love to get my pilot license. That's going to be a big goal for me. I'm going to be doing a lot more things that are more like self-fulfilling. There's a thing that I've learned of like, how does someone justify buying a $300,000 car? How does someone justify paying, for a bottle of $50,000 bottle of wine? I think as you do begin to make more money, the thing to understand is you begin to purchase things it's really, you begin to purchase things that you value more than money itself. And instead of being so consumed on always needing to feel like I have to purchase things to get to that next level, I really just want to feel fulfilled. So I think the aviation thing and getting my pilot's license would be something where like I've always been interested in.
Yeah. You want to fly this thing?
Yeah, that's why we bought it. That it was a single pilot. It's able to be flown by a single pilot, and I feel like that would be a goal for myself. That it's a way that would fulfill me, like for myself, right? It's not about anyone else. It would be very self-fulfilling for me. The boxing thing, and then the other thing, we talked about the business, and then my family. Getting closer with my family in the very beginning. When I was a teenager, I mean, I had no friends. It was my family, and that was all. It's a very like Hispanic tradition where like there's no such thing as friends. The only thing that I grew up with was like my family. And then I moved from California to Arizona, and I moved out here myself. And then it was almost the opposite, where like my friends were now my family because I was so distant from them, and I kind of grew apart from them. And it's a common thing that they like joke around about, where now as I'm getting older, I'm beginning to realize like that's not something that I want them to like be joking around about, where it's become this expectation where I am distant. My parents are getting older. My daughter's growing, very quickly, and I would love for my daughter to have a relationship with my parents. I would love to have a stronger relationship with my parents. And what's the point of making all this money if the people that I love the most, I'm really just putting in the back burner, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be the transition that I would like to make in 2023.
Yeah, I think I even see it just, I mean, even like out here is like your F8, right? And I've seen a lot of people care about their cars and different things like that. Like, I could just tell, like, you've bought in so many supercars at this point, it doesn't mean that much to you at this. Like, I bet you that first GTR you bought
way more
felt way more cool.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's, after a while, it becomes like that was more like a business transaction. Where I didn't even look at it before I bought it. Justin presented it to me, who's my business partner. I sent the wire, and they shipped it over, and I wasn't even here to take delivery. It was like, I think Thanksgiving or something like that. I just had it delivered, and when I came back, it was here, and that was it. It's one of my favorite cars. But again, I think you begin to really understand the difference when you see the value that this car brings you, which again, I'm very grateful for. But then the value, where I see value is not defined by that car. And I think that's kind of like the transition I'm now making as I'm getting a little bit older, where there's a lot more important things to me that I value versus that vehicle.
Yeah, and you seem to manage your time pretty well too. Like, it seems like you get to spend a lot of time with your family, but you still have all these businesses going on. But you don't seem like you're super stressed out, running a million different ways, phone always ringing. Like I've seen with some, other successful entrepreneurs that seem like they're just so wrapped up in a million different things. It seems like you've been able to kind of delegate your life pretty well.
Yeah, and again, I think a big part of that comes down to the people that I'm partnered up with, where I'm able to have that luxury of having downtime. Again, it comes down to the very principle of why are you working so hard if all you're going to end up doing is working to live, right? Yeah, you might be making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, but at the end of the day, the whole point of making money is to have freedom to do what you want, and you don't need a ton of money necessarily to do it. It's very easy to say that as I have money, but again, I think I wish I would have kept a better balance, where now I'm beginning to realize, what I actually value in life, and that's not the dollar amount in my bank account.
Well, I mean, for what, 27 you are?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad age to be learning.
To realize, yeah.
To realize. You still got a lot of time left, and your daughter, obviously, how old is she now?
She's about to be 11 months, so 11 months? In 3 days.
Yeah, growing up fast.
Yeah.
So it's cool that, you realize that, and now, you get to spend a lot of time, at home with her and everything.
Definitely.
So I want to ask, because you've made money doing a lot of different things. If you're someone like, obviously, new young guys watching this want to be entrepreneurs, if you want to get into real estate, day trading, or flipping something else, like, where would you start if you had to recommend to someone?
So I think a lot of it has to do with timing. This is 100% my opinion, but knowing the conditions we have now, right? When I started, and let's say when I bought my first house, it was December 22nd or 21st of 2015. I bought my house for $176,000. It's very easy for me to say, like, man, I did a amazing job as an entrepreneur. I purchased that house. I purchased a house the following year. But, it also had to do with timing. Market was
Arizona,
right?
Perfect timing.
Correct. Now, think about it. Markets are going down as of right now, right? Especially the real estate market. So would I say that real estate would be the best way to start investing in real estate? Right now, I would see it as stocks tend to react quicker than real estate. And stocks have already corrected themselves so much where it doesn't have to be that you have to trade. But my thing is, you have Amazon back at 2018 levels. You have Tesla back at 2019 levels. You have Apple at 52-week lows. The idea of investing, if you haven't invested but you wanted to in the past 4 to 5 years, now's the time. Now's the time to prepare, where you don't have to go all in, but again, even just buying one stock. The idea of opportunity, I think, is based off of where the market is at when you're choosing to take advantage of it. There's still, of course, if you're savvy with, wholesaling, if you're savvy with real estate flipping, there's still money to be made, but it's understanding where the margin is at. We call it like the golden ratio, upside potential versus downside risk. And in my opinion, I would say that right now, I would see more of that with Amazon. Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, offers over 100% ROI. Tesla's trading below $150 a share.
146 today.
It offers like 150% ROI. Apple offers over 40% ROI. And again, these aren't meme stocks. These are some of the most valuable companies that are publicly traded. So if you've ever wanted to invest, I'm not saying you're going to make a ton of money, right? But if you've ever wanted to, even if you were to just buy one share, now is, again, when the opportunities are presenting themselves.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's a tough time, like, if you wanted to get started in real estate, but I also think there's never a perfect time, right? At the end of the day, you got to start taking action in whatever you're going to do. And, in a few years, maybe end up with a jet like this. But super inspirational, man. I love seeing this. You've inspired me a bunch, since we've been working, over in the office for the last year. So it's cool to see what you're doing, dude.
I think a big part of it is the reason, and I've told you this before, and I love saying it, the reason I was so grateful to have you at our office is because you showed us what is possible and what could take us to the next level. So grateful to have you as well.
Appreciate it, bro.
Of course.